Hello everyone. So this video is the start of a series of video that I will be making that will be focused on advanced coloring techniques. Hello everyone. So to start off with this series of videos, this is lesson number 1. I have broken up the entire series into short videos so it's more easily digestible. To be honest, advanced coloring techniques is a very huge topic that could span many videos if I really want to talk about it. But I'm not going to go into that much detail because I'm going to try and make it simpler so everybody can get it and hopefully raise the level of your neurographic art coloring. Okay, that's actually the biggest aim for this entire series, is to see people being able to do neurographic art and come out with really beautiful pieces of artwork. And I really hope that in making this series of videos, those people who watch it would get it and come out with artwork that were noticeably better than what they had before. Well, I would say that if you were an artist or someone who's already know how to do advanced coloring, like shading, layering, etc., then probably this video wouldn't be of much use to you, but you can still watch it for entertainment purposes or see if you missed anything or whatever. But let me just say that I'm not a professional artist. I know that some of the viewers of this channel are professional artists, which I'm not. Okay? I am just a mental health practitioner that likes doing art, so I'm a closet artist, so I'm not a professional artist. Okay? But there's also another piece of warning that I'd like to give you. Okay? Coloring is a rabbit hole. The deeper you go, the more time you'll take. Alright? But most of the time you end up with beautiful pieces of artwork that is going to take a lot of time to do. Okay? So if you're willing to put in the time to do it, you might end up with really beautiful pieces of artwork. And the amount of time you spend on it depends on how pretty you want it to look. But not every piece of artwork is going to end up looking beautiful. Now remember, you're doing all these pieces of artwork for yourself. As long as it looks pretty and beautiful to you, that's good enough. The artworks that you make, because of what I hope neurographic art can help you accomplish, they are not meant for museum artwork galleries. They are meant for you and you alone. Okay? So you decide how pretty you want it to be, and you get to decide when it's enough. Okay? When you're happy with it, that's good enough. But not every piece of artwork is going to come out looking like something that you're going to be very happy with because you spend a lot of time in it. Okay? It's just the nature of things. Even professional artists do that. It happens to all professional artists. Even though we all know that the beauty of a piece of artwork is proportional to the amount of time that someone spends on it, but not every artwork that you spend a lot of time into is going to look beautiful. Alright? So there's always this risk there that your artwork becomes overdone and it doesn't turn out the way you hope. that it will. Now, another piece of warning I would like to give you, with neurographic art, neurographica, or any form of artwork that you do for therapeutic reasons, it is very difficult to churn out pieces that are quote-unquote museum gallery quality. Okay, they're not gonna come out like so pretty that you want the whole world to know about. It's just the nature of the work, okay? Because they're doing it, you are doing it for yourself. Some will, not every piece will, okay? And because it's also the reason that you cannot plan ahead of how you want your artwork to look. If you're planning ahead of how you want your artwork to look, then you're not doing your artwork for therapeutic reasons. You're doing it for artistic reasons, okay? So with Neurographica, like, okay, you can make a piece of artwork, a Neuro Tree artwork and a Neuro Lotus artwork pretty and beautiful, and some other algorithms that are like pre-planned. You can actually picture how it looks and how you want it to look. Yeah, you can make it look pretty and beautiful, but if you're doing a catharsis, chances are there's a very high percentage of likelihood that the artwork that you're going to come out with is not going to be so pretty that you think it's museum worthy. So just be aware of that. I'm not saying that you're not a good artist, it's just that that's the nature of therapeutic artwork. Okay? So if it does happen that you come out with a piece that is so pretty that you want to share with the whole world, please do go ahead. That's like an extra bonus for you. Okay? So you have to shift your mindset in such a way. And with that, I want to say that today's lesson is about layering. And layering is about changing the mindset of how you view a piece of drawing. It could be a coloring page, it could be something that you drew, it could be something else that someone drew. It's a change in mindset of how people usually think of what you need to do with a piece of drawing. Okay? So with layering is like, generally what we do is, first you have the drawing layer, and then you have another layer where you color block out the whole thing, the whole entire piece of artwork. And then after that, you put on your detail layers that makes it look more beautiful. So the ugly part is usually the first couple of layers. And then as you proceed further, it will look prettier. Okay, it may not be museum quality, museum gallery quality, but it will look prettier than how it would look in the first couple of layers that you put down. Okay, the first couple of layers are more, okay, if we think of layer 0 as the drawing layer, then the first layer is your color blocking layer, which is probably the most ugly layer of your whole entire drawing at that point. And then as you progress on, you add layers and layers and layers on it. The number of layers is not decided by anyone else but by you. Usually you're limited by the number of layers that the paper you're using is able to take. Okay? So usually 3 or 4 layers is a piece of drawing paper is able to take. If you use poorer quality paper, the smoother paper, the less layers you're going to be able to do. So if you're using like printer cartridge paper, the most you're going to be able to get on, even with just colored pencils, is probably 2 layers. Okay? 2 color layers, so to say. So you draw one, you color, and then another layer, that's probably the max. And then you have to fight to get another layer in to get more colors in. Okay, it's because there's not enough tooth in the paper. The toothier the paper, the more layers you can add on, or rather you can pile on, because the tooth is what grabs the pigment of whatever coloring materials that you're using. Now, I'm talking a lot, so I will be giving you examples later to see, but generally speaking, I want you to understand that usually you can think of layering as 3 layers. Okay, your layer 0 is your drawing, the next layer is your color blocking, and then the layer after that is where you put in all the details, the shading, or if you have any textures you go in. Now you can have more layers on top of that to add more details and textures in, if your paper can handle it. Okay, so without talking more, I am going to give you a few examples for you to look at. These examples are all my previous artwork. Okay, 2 of them will be the Neuroart from my Neuroart class. If you've taken my Neuroart class, you know exactly how it works and how to do all the layering and all that. Otherwise, you learn in general how layering works with the given examples. And then the very last example is an artwork that I recently made. In fact, I just recently finished it like 2 days ago, before the filming of this video. Okay, you may not be watching the video at the time when I finished my artwork, but let's say that at the time of filming this video, I just completed the artwork that you will see in the final example like 2 days ago, before I started filming this video. Alright, so let's get on with it and you will get an idea of what layering is. So I won't be doing any drawing examples today because I think layering is more of a mindset, a frame of mind that you need to learn to look at a piece of artwork, a coloring book, a sheet of coloring, a page in the coloring book differently than how you're used to looking at it. And when you get to that point, there is a learning curve on how to think in terms of layer, because layering is what most artists do. I'm not a pro artist, but I'm also learning how to do it, because previously I don't do it that way either. Some people still don't, some pro artists don't, but that's how people who teach art will teach you how to do it in layers. Okay, so you will see 3 examples after this. So here you see a picture of a Neuroart. That's just a plain drawing, and okay, so it's just the paper and a drawing, and this is done on a A3 size paper that's cut to a square. And this painting was done more than a year ago, probably closer to 2 years ago, and it took me a pretty long time. Now, as mentioned before earlier in the video, if you want pretty pictures, you have to spend the time to do it. Okay? Now, having said that, I want to remind you that spending more time on a picture does not mean that you will end up with a pretty picture, but every pretty picture that you see is the result of spending a lot of time on it. Okay? So that's a little morsel of wisdom that I wanted to share. So in this picture, you can say that this is layer 0. There's just the line drawings and the neural lines and the shapes and everything drawn out. And over here, you see the basic finished, completed coloring of a 7 chakra neural lotus. Now, in this case, you can consider this drawing complete, which is what many people can say they've completed after they get to this point. Okay, there's nothing wrong with the drawing, it is complete, okay, with the exception of maybe if you want to put in a background. But in this case, I didn't want to do it further to prove a point, and also it's because I didn't know what color to use for the background yet. So I left it this way to show people that, you know, yeah, if you get up to this point, you can say we're done. And this is what we call basic coloring, okay? Yep, for all intensive purposes, at this point, basic coloring is done. But if you want to raise the bar slightly, you will have to put in some shading, etc., and some textures probably to make it look prettier. Okay, which is what the next picture is going to show you. Okay, so you see the difference between this picture and the previous one is because I put in a little bit more extra work in to get it to this stage. And to get from the drawing stage, this stage, it took about 10 days of about 3 to 4 hours a day coloring to get to this point. And even at this point, I wanted to say that, well, I want to do a little bit more to color the edges more, but in the end I'm like, nah, never mind, I'll just do a little shading closer to the neural lotus and call it done, and then leave it as, you know, the edges a bit more rough, and it'll be fine. Because frankly speaking, by the time I got to this stage, I was a little bit tired and burnt out and say, okay, I think I'm done with this. I didn't want to go any further. Alright, so when you spend a lot of time coloring, especially when you're trying to push yourself to get it done within a certain time frame, this will happen. And it happened to me when I was doing this. So unless you're one of those casual coloring, because I was doing a lesson on this is, by the way, this is the Neuro Lotus class that I have in my class catalog, and in that class I showed you how to color use two different ways to color the Neural Lotus. This was the 7 chakra Neural Lotus, and the next one you see is the shaded Neural Lotus. Well, I don't know what you call the technique, like, you know, it looks more like a real flower as opposed to this is a little bit more abstract. I mean, the Neural Lotus are both abstract paintings in any case. So, but the other one looks a little bit more realistic, and it's a different way of layering. Okay, so for this one, you see the blank layer, the color blocking layer, and then the final layer, which is all the details and everything in it. Alright, so the next picture. So this is another drawing of the Neural Lotus, which is the plain layer 0. Okay, you see all the neural lines and everything, and this is on a smaller scale. It was like an A4 size, and I purposely made it in such a way that I wanted this to be slightly simpler than the previous one and a little bit more realistic. So my color blocking here looks like this. Okay, now in hindsight, the whole reason I'm doing this color blocking was so I wanted less of the grains of the paper to show through. I figured if the background of the paper is not white, it will come out less. But in this case, because I didn't put enough pigment on the paper or the background color, the pink will show up kind of lighter, so it might as well be looking like white. Okay, so that was the mistake that I made in hindsight. But later on, if you look at the picture, you will see that closer to the edges of each petals, it will look less grainy. But overall, the graininess of the entire picture worked in my favor because it looks like textured petals on a flower, which is this. Okay, so this is the detail layer with all the shading and the extra lines put in. I'm not sure if can't remember if I actually drew the extra lines to make the green stand out more and all that. So can't really remember. So if I did, it is on this layer. Okay, even the pink neural lines even. Okay, so now you see all the grains in these petals, and you will see that towards the edges of each petal, the grains are less obvious because of the darker color towards the end of each petal in the underpainting that I've showed you earlier. So I call the previous layer an underpainting. Okay, so with each painting, the layers are decided by you, how you do it. You just have to think in terms of layers. Like, okay, so it's kind of like the first layer is for you to give an idea to yourself how you want the picture to look. You can leave shading in with color blocking and all that, like what I did previously in the previous picture, and then the final picture will look totally different and more advanced. So I'm going to show you another example which is not NeuroRotas and not neurographic art related in any way. Okay, so this is a painting that I'm making for my uncle who is suffering from cancer and dementia. And the whole reason why I did this was I thought maybe if I couldn't do much, but maybe I can give him a gift of a painting done in pastels. Maybe when he looks at it, he will feel more at peace, you know, like more comforting in a sense. Hopefully my painting would achieve that. And in this is not the drawing layer. Of course there's the drawing layer which with all my pencil scratchings and everything. And this is like the second layer where I blocked out the colors. Okay, so basically if you have seen some of my previous videos on the background, midground, and foreground, you will see that in this painting where I try to do the background, midground, and foreground with this, where the foreground is always more details, has more details, more textures, and the further back you go, it gets a little more blurry. So now in this case, if you were going through my videos for the background, midground, and foreground, I mentioned that the further back you go, the lighter it gets. But I also did mention that in areas where you have restricted light source, the further back you go, the darker it will get. So in this case, I was trying to recreate the look of a forest going through. Now, if you've seen my personal webpage, you would see that this composition is very familiar because it is the same composition as my metaphor forest painting that I did earlier, like way earlier, a few years ago. with some differences because I wanted to remake that painting in a different style. Less of the Zentangle style and more paintings with little bit of textures using Zentangle method, but not as much Zentangle method as previously. So the next painting is you'll see where I have a little bit more textures put in. So you see I have more textures in now, and you start seeing like the light darker going into the background. Now this is not the complete picture yet. So this is like, you know, middle, knowing that it has a little bit more details, knowing that after I spray, I'm gonna have to do a bit more touching up, and this is a result of after spraying Fixative over it. I'm using Pastels, so I need to spray Fixative over this thing. So after spraying the Fixative, there were a lot of areas that I needed to fix because the colors changed and some of the textures got really blurry, and then some of the paint looked like, you know, it disappeared. So I had to do some more touching up. So the next layer, which is supposed to be the detail layer, is where I have put in more textures, you'll see, and you also start to see the likeness of my original painting come up. Okay, so and this is the final result after the final spraying of the Fixative, and you also start to see what I was talking about earlier with the foreground, midground, and the background. Okay, so you see that the textures are more pronounced for things that are closer to you, and the textures are less pronounced to the things that are further away from you. Okay, and overall, I am quite happy with this painting, even though I'm not 100% happy, but I am restricted by time issues because I was making two paintings. The first one was a 7 chakra Neuro Lotus, and that took me like slightly over a week to do because of the same issues I'm facing here. But that painting led me to be a little bit more experienced with how the pastels react on this paper. Okay, by the way, this painting is a A2 size painting, which is really big. I don't usually work this big, but I figured for therapeutic reasons, I needed to work this big. And what I'm really happy with this painting is all the grass textures that came out, you know, and everything. It looks kind of peaceful and soothing. So that was the part where I was really happy with. Okay, and the effect that I was going for, you know, like you're going deeper into the painting and it makes your eye wander all over the place. So I am actually quite happy with this painting. Even though I'm not 100% happy, I would say, satisfactorily happy with how this whole painting turned out. So you've seen the examples of how layering works, and I hope you can apply it in your future artwork for yourself to try it out. Don't get frustrated, you know, try your best. And to summarize everything, I would say that you just need to bear in mind that you need to put color on your artwork, and then you need to put details onto your artwork to make it look less flat. Okay, so in all three examples that I've shown you, you've seen the ugly first layer of colors, and then also the flat first layer of color example. It's complete, but it's flat. Okay, so and then, but you need these layers to build up on it to get up to the layer where you can make your whole artwork look less flat. Okay, so this is like, to me, layering is like the most basic method or most basic technique for making better artwork or coloring better. Okay, and then the next few videos as we go on, I will introduce more things like blending, shading, texture. Okay, and all these will help you to raise the bar on your artwork, hopefully. Okay, or at the very least, maybe make your artwork look less flat. Okay, so with that, I'm going to end this session here, and I will talk to you again in the next video.